it's very interesting. I think he knew he wanted to preserve his family for history. He knew what he was doing, I think.
Whenever I went in there, some of them was laying there in the house dead. Blood running every way.
And it was a very horrible scene. And now, this is their loved ones. I mean, imagine the shock and horror that they had.
There's a certain kind of tranquility that comes with rural life, where each sunrise is a new promise of hard work, and each sunset a reward for the labor put into the earth. It's a life that demands resilience, where the bond of family is woven with every field plowed, every seed sown. For the Lawson family of Germanton, North Carolina, this was their world, a world that seemed to promise stability, love, and the simple joys of family. But beneath the surface, the shadows of an unimaginable tragedy quietly loomed. Charles Davis Lawson was a man who embodied the values of his time: dedication, perseverance, and an unflinching commitment to providing for his family. Born on May 10, 1886, in Stokes County, North Carolina, Charlie, as he was known, came from humble beginnings. He was the son of Augustus and Nancy Lawson, and though his early life was steeped in the hard work of farm life, it was a life of quiet pride. In 1911, Charlie met Fanny Manring, a woman whose warmth and kindness matched the beauty of her heart. They married, beginning a life together in the same rural community where Charlie had grown up. The couple was blessed with 8 children, but as the world would come to know, their family was marked by both love and loss. Their third child, William, tragically passed away from pneumonia at the tender age of 6, forever altering the family's course. For any parent, the death of a child is a wound that never fully heals. Yet, in true rural fashion, the Lawsons carried on, holding tightly to each other, their strength rooted in the land and their love for their surviving children. The surviving Lawson children, like their parents, were a testament to the resilience of the family. There was Arthur, the eldest at 19, who was known for his hard-working nature and close bond with his father. Then there was Marie, at 17, a young woman whose vibrant spirit shone through despite the hardships. Carrie, just 12, was full of life and dreams. 7-year-old Mabel was the light of the household, a little girl whose laughter could fill the room. James, a 4-year-old with an innocent curiosity, and Raymond, only 2 years old, were the youngest and most carefree, their lives ahead of them. And then, there was little Mary Lou, just a 3-month-old baby, whose bright eyes and innocent smile were a promise of a future that would never be realized. In 1918, the family made a significant move to Germanton, North Carolina, seeking better opportunities. Charlie had been working as a sharecropper for years, and after saving diligently, he finally bought a small piece of land on Brook Cove Road. It was a modest plot, but it offered the family something they had long desired: security. The land was situated near Charlie's 2 younger brothers, Marion and Elijah, and it seemed to fulfill their longing for connection, family time, and a fresh start. The Lawsons, like many farm families, believed that the land was both their livelihood and their legacy. Life on the farm was hard, but the Lawson family faced it together, day by day. They worked long hours in the tobacco fields, and in the evenings, they would gather as a family to repair the tobacco barn. Fanny and the older children, including Arthur, would lend a hand, working side by side with Charlie, sharing not just the labor but the moments of family bonding that made it all worthwhile. Despite the long hours, the Lawson household was a place of laughter, shared stories, and an unbreakable bond. But even in the most idyllic of families, things aren't always as they seem. In 1928, disaster struck when Charlie suffered a serious head injury while working in the tobacco barn. A piece of rotten timber fell, and Charlie, in an attempt to clear the debris, struck his head with an axe. His injury, though not life-threatening, was the beginning of a noticeable shift in his behavior. Friends and neighbors began to notice subtle changes in Charlie. He became more irritable, more temperamental, and his bursts of anger grew more frequent. Was it the head injury that triggered something dark within him? Or was there a deeper, more complex reason behind the transformation? Whatever the cause, Charlie was no longer the man he had once been. His quiet, stoic nature began to give way to unpredictable outbursts of anger, leaving his family and those around him uncertain of what he might do next. The seeds of an unspeakable tragedy had been planted. But even in the face of such changes, there was no indication that anything was wrong. No one could have predicted the horror that was about to unfold on Christmas Day 1929. Charlie had appeared to be enjoying a moment of success. His family had had a good tobacco harvest that year, and they were able to afford luxuries like shopping trips and family portraits. But in hindsight, these gestures seemed far more ominous than festive. Charlie's outward appearance of normalcy was a facade, hiding the darkness that had taken root in his soul. For the Lawson family, the future seemed full of promise, but behind the veneer of everyday life, an unspeakable evil was brewing. The ultimate tragedy would soon unfold, altering the course of their lives forever, and the quiet community of Germanton would never be the same again. Christmas was supposed to be a time of peace, of warmth, and of family, a day to gather, to share, to laugh, and to celebrate. But for the Lawson family, Christmas 1929 would be forever remembered not as a time of joy, but as the tragic day when innocence was lost and horror took its place. The morning of December 25, 1929, began like many Christmas mornings in Germanton, a chill in the air, the scent of fresh pine and food filling the home, the excitement of children anticipating the joys of the day. For the Lawson family, there was no reason to suspect that this day would end in such unthinkable tragedy. Charlie Lawson and his eldest son, Arthur, were preparing for their annual Christmas hunting trip. It was a cherished tradition in Germanton, one that many families took part in, marking the holiday with the quiet thrill of the hunt. As father and son set off into the woods, the rest of the Lawson family stayed behind, each member going about their usual Christmas preparations. Marie, the eldest daughter, was busy in the kitchen, baking a two-tiered cake, her hands moving skillfully, decorating the cake with icing and raisins. It was a labor of love, a small yet significant act of care that symbolized the warmth and togetherness of the holiday. She was just 17, still so young, yet already a figure of maturity and responsibility in the family. She didn't know that, in a few short hours, the world as she knew it would come to an end. Carrie, just 12, and her younger sister Mabel, 7, were the next to go about their tasks. The young girls, full of youthful energy and excitement, made plans to visit their uncle. But their trip would never be completed. They had no idea that as they passed by the tobacco barn, their lives were about to be tragically cut short. In the quiet moments that followed, Charlie Lawson, alone in the barn, began the unimaginable. With a 12-gauge shotgun in hand, he waited. And then, in a swift and brutal act, he killed his two daughters, Carrie and Mabel, while they were on their way to visit their uncle. The horror didn't stop with the gunshots, it escalated when Charlie, to ensure their deaths, went back to their bodies and bludgeoned them with the shotgun. Marie, still inside the house, must have heard the distant gunshots. She screamed. Her instincts as a protective older sister kicked in, and she immediately tried to warn her younger brothers. "Hide," she screamed, her voice filled with terror. But the warning came too late. Charlie, intent on completing his terrible act, moved quickly. He shot Marie, his eldest daughter, as she tried to escape the chaos. Inside, the house was filled with confusion and panic. The shrill cries of Marie echoed in the house as Charlie turned his attention to the two youngest sons, James, 4, and Raymond, 2. There was no mercy, no hesitation. The sound of gunfire rang through the house, and within moments, 2 more lives were taken, leaving the children's innocent cries to be silenced by the cruel hand of fate. Charlie moved with terrifying efficiency, as if carrying out a grim task he had long planned. The final blow came when he went upstairs to the bedroom where baby Mary Lou, just a 3-month-old infant, lay peacefully in her crib. Without a second thought, Charlie ended her life, striking her with the same shotgun that had already claimed the lives of his older children. The youngest, the most vulnerable, was not spared. In just a few hours, Charlie Lawson had wiped out his entire family. 7 lives lost in a bloodbath that no one could have predicted. No one in the community suspected a thing. No one could have imagined that the man they knew, a hard-working farmer, a husband, a father, could be capable of such horrors. But the reality of what had unfolded that Christmas Day in the Lawson household was undeniable. Charlie didn't wait for the authorities to come. Instead, he fled into the woods, accompanied by the family's dogs. As he wandered the cold, silent forest, he circled a dogwood tree, contemplating what he had just done. Was he filled with remorse? Was he lost in the depths of his own madness? Or was he simply resigned to the path he had chosen? The sun set that Christmas evening, and with it, Charlie Lawson's life. He turned the gun on himself, taking his own life as the community remained unaware of the massacre that had just unfolded in their midst. His final moments were spent alone, surrounded by the ghosts of his own making. Arthur Lawson, Charlie's eldest son, who had gone to town for ammunition, was unaware of the carnage until he returned. What should have been a joyous reunion turned into the discovery of a nightmare. Arthur rushed home, only to find the lifeless bodies of his mother, his siblings, and his baby sister. The house was a scene of horror, bloodstains on the floor, broken bodies of children, and a family destroyed in the blink of an eye. The crime scene, though gruesome, went unnoticed for hours. In the rural town of Germanton, where hunting was common on Christmas Day, no one thought twice about the sound of gunshots. It wasn't until a distant relative, Charlie's younger brother Elijah, arrived to visit and discovered the bodies, that the true horror of the day began to unfold. The community, still reeling from the shock, was soon engulfed by the grisly aftermath of what had happened inside the Lawson household. As the sheriff and his deputies arrived, they found a scene so horrific that it would become etched in their memories forever. The sight of the bodies, arranged with eerie precision by Charlie himself, arms crossed, rocks under their heads, was a disturbing tableau, as if the family was being prepared for burial, their bodies treated with strange reverence. But there would be no caskets, no funerals for these victims. Instead, their deaths were a brutal statement, a chilling reminder that even in the most ordinary of homes, darkness can take root.
Killed them all in the house there, but two girls. And then he shot them right there at the barn and drug them in the barn and put rocks under their heads. Now, a man's bound to be crazy to do things like that, you know. I don't believe I could do nothing like that with my family, because unless you was crazy or something bad wrong.
The question of why Charlie Lawson committed such an unthinkable act has haunted both investigators and the public for decades. What could possibly drive a father, one who had been well regarded in his community, a man who had loved his family, to kill his wife and 6 children in such a brutal and methodical manner? Theories abound, but the truth, as with so many tragedies, remains shrouded in mystery. As we try to make sense of the horror, we're left with more questions than answers. Over the years, various explanations have emerged, each attempting to piece together the fractured puzzle of Charlie Lawson's actions. But none have truly been able to uncover the full truth behind the grisly murders. Was it an act of madness? A manifestation of hidden rage? Or was it something even more disturbing, something darker, more deeply buried in the recesses of the family's life? The most widely discussed theory revolves around the injury that Charlie sustained in 1928. While working in the tobacco barn, a piece of rotten timber fell, striking him in the head. The accident was severe enough to cause a deep gash and leave Charlie with a lingering injury, but it wasn't life-threatening. However, the physical toll was not the only lasting effect. In the months following the injury, those who knew Charlie began to notice subtle but unmistakable changes in his behavior. Known for his temper in the past, Charlie's anger became more frequent, more volatile. Friends and neighbors reported that he seemed different, quicker to snap, more agitated, his mood swinging erratically. Was this shift a result of the brain injury? Could the trauma have triggered something deep within his psyche, causing him to lash out in such a horrific manner? Medical experts at the time could not provide a clear answer. The possibility that Charlie's head injury altered his mental state remained a point of speculation. After his death, the autopsy performed on his body revealed no major abnormalities in his brain. But could something subtle, something undetectable, have been enough to push him to the edge? It's a question that continues to haunt those who try to understand the true cause of the murders. As time passed, whispers began to emerge from within the Lawson family, and the darkest theory of all began to take root, the possibility that Charlie had been involved in an incestuous relationship with his daughter, Marie. In 1990, the book White Christmas, Bloody Christmas brought this theory to light, interviewing relatives who had heard rumors about the tension between Charlie and Marie, and between Charlie and his wife, Fanny. According to some family members, Fanny had been deeply concerned about an inappropriate relationship between Charlie and Marie. Rumors circulated that Marie was pregnant with her father's child, a horrifying revelation that, if true, would add a tragic layer of complexity to the family's already fraught dynamics. Was this the secret that Charlie was trying to silence? Was Marie's pregnancy the catalyst that triggered Charlie's rampage? One of Marie's close friends, Ella May, claimed that Marie had confessed to her during a sleepover that she was pregnant by her father. According to May, Marie's mother, Fanny, was aware of the situation but was too afraid to confront Charlie. These allegations, though compelling, are based on hearsay, and no concrete evidence has ever surfaced to confirm them. But if these rumors were true, they add a chilling layer to the murders. The question becomes, was Charlie's need to protect this dark secret the true motive behind his family's slaughter? Or was the desire to erase this stain on his family's reputation so overpowering that he was willing to destroy everyone he loved? The Great Depression had gripped the nation by 1929, casting a shadow over families like the Lawsons, who were already struggling to make ends meet. Some have suggested that Charlie, like many during that time, was overwhelmed by the financial pressures of providing for a large family in an era of widespread economic hardship. In the weeks leading up to the murders, the Lawson family had experienced a rare moment of prosperity. They had enjoyed a good tobacco harvest that year, and Charlie was able to take his family on a shopping trip to Winston-Salem. They purchased new clothes and even had a family portrait taken, acts that, in hindsight, seem eerily out of place for a working-class family at the time. Could this newfound wealth have been a source of false hope that only heightened the pressure? Did Charlie feel that the only way out of his financial struggles was to end it all, taking his family with him in a twisted act of mercy, so they would not have to suffer in the Depression's wake? While this theory certainly speaks to the desperation many families felt during that time, it seems inadequate as a sole explanation for such a brutal crime. The murder of children, particularly a 3-month-old infant, goes beyond financial stress. There must have been something else driving Charlie, something deeper than mere survival. In the years since the murders, some have speculated that Charlie's actions were the result of a psychological breakdown, an unhinging of the mind that led him to commit unspeakable acts. Charlie had always been known to have a short temper, but the frequency and intensity of his outbursts after his head injury suggested that something more insidious was happening inside him. Could Charlie have suffered from a mental illness that went undiagnosed during his life? Did the combination of physical injury, personal loss, and emotional turmoil cause his mind to fracture, ultimately leading him to kill his family? Psychologists have long debated the connection between brain injuries and violent behavior. While no definitive link has been established, it's not far-fetched to consider that Charlie's head injury could have played a role in his mental deterioration. His final act, murdering his entire family and then turning the gun on himself, suggests a man in the throes of a profound psychological break. The horrors of that Christmas day in 1929 did not end with the gunshots. For the Lawson family, the wounds ran deep, far beyond the blood spilled in the home. The brutal massacre left not just a trail of bodies, but a profound scar on the community of Germanton, one that would never truly heal. For those who survived, for those who bore witness to the unimaginable, the consequences of that day would echo through the years. And for the town itself, the Lawson tragedy would be something they would never be able to forget. The first to discover the aftermath of the massacre were Charlie Lawson's younger brother Elijah and his 2 sons. It was they who arrived at the scene and found the bodies, 7 innocent lives taken in the blink of an eye. They were the ones to witness the haunting image of Charlie's grim arrangement of the bodies, laid out with eerie care. Charlie had positioned each body in the living room, arms crossed over their chests, with rocks placed under their heads as makeshift pillows, as though preparing his family for an eternal rest. The image was both chilling and heartbreaking, a final, twisted gesture of a man who seemed to believe he was giving them peace, even as he took their lives. But no amount of preparation could spare the community from the shock that followed. Germanton, a small and tight-knit town, was never the same after the murders. The quiet rural community, where the townsfolk knew one another's names and stories, was suddenly thrust into the national spotlight. News of the massacre spread like wildfire, shocking not just North Carolina, but the entire nation. The case made the front pages of newspapers, including the New York Times, with the headline, "Stokes Farmer Kills Wife and 6 Children." The brutal nature of the killings captured the nation's attention, and people from all over the country flocked to Germanton to try and understand what had happened. As the town began to process the incomprehensible tragedy, the aftermath became a spectacle of both grief and curiosity. The Lawson family home, the site of the murders, became a macabre tourist attraction. Charlie's brother, Marion, decided to open the house to the public, charging visitors a quarter to walk through the blood-stained rooms where the horrific acts had taken place. The house had been left untouched, with the remnants of the murder still visible. The Christmas cake Marie had baked, with its raisins and icing, remained on display, its sweet decoration now a haunting reminder of the joy that had once filled the house. The bed where Marie had been shot, the porch where Fanny had been killed, it was all there for the world to see. Visitors were drawn to the house, not out of sympathy, but out of a strange fascination with the gruesome details. The story of the Lawson family, the brutal murders, and the eerie mystery surrounding Charlie's actions became a kind of dark folklore. The town's quiet streets were lined with cars, and over 5,000 people visited the house in the first few days following the murders. Some came to mourn, others came out of curiosity, but in the end, the house became a symbol of both tragedy and spectacle. As the years passed, the house was eventually demolished, but the impact of the tragedy endured. Stories of the murders and the eerie events surrounding them continued to circulate, with some claiming that the spirits of the Lawson family still haunted the land. Locals reported seeing ghostly apparitions of children running through the fields, and strange occurrences were said to happen near the dogwood tree where Charlie had taken his own life. Was it simply superstition, or did the souls of the slain children and their father linger in the air, their tragic fate forever etched into the landscape of Germanton? The tragedy also sparked a cultural fascination with the Lawson family murders. Books, poems, and songs were written about the case, with one of the most notable being the ballad "The Murder of the Lawson Family," recorded by the Carolina Buddies in 1930. The song, which recounts the events of the murders, gained popularity during the Great Depression and sold over 8,000 copies, a significant number for the time. It became a symbol of the fascination that the murders generated and helped to keep the Lawson family's story alive in the public consciousness. In addition to the ballad, several books were published in the following decades that sought to unravel the mystery of what had driven Charlie to commit such an atrocity. One of the most significant was White Christmas, Bloody Christmas, written by father-daughter duo Trudy J. Smith and M. Bruce Jones. In it, the authors explored the idea that the murders were linked to an incestuous relationship between Charlie and his daughter, Marie. Another book, The Meaning of Our Tears, published in 2006 by Trudy J. Smith, delved into the aftermath of the murders and the lingering trauma that affected the Lawson family's surviving members, particularly Arthur Lawson. Yet despite the numerous theories, no one can say for sure what drove Charlie Lawson to commit such a heinous act. Was it the head injury? Financial desperation? Or something more sinister, buried deep within the family's secrets? The true motive remains a mystery, and perhaps it always will. But the tragedy of the Lawson family lives on, a reminder of how quickly a life can change, how one moment of madness can tear apart a family and a community. Arthur Lawson, the sole survivor, was forever haunted by the events of that day. Though he went on to marry and have children, he was never able to escape the memories of what had happened. In 1945, Arthur died in a freak accident at the age of 31. His death, while tragic in its own right, was also seen by some as the final chapter in a story marked by loss and sorrow. Arthur never spoke publicly about the murders, and his silence only added to the mystery surrounding his father's actions. The site of the Lawson family home, now just a memory, serves as a somber reminder of the tragedy that unfolded there. The families that lived in the area after the demolition of the house reported strange occurrences, ghostly figures, unexplained noises, and an eerie silence that seemed to hang over the land. Whether or not these events are tied to the spirits of the Lawson family is a matter of speculation, but the legacy of their deaths continues to reverberate through the generations. The tragic tale of the Lawson family is one that will forever be etched in the annals of true crime history. On Christmas Day 1929, an act of unspeakable horror shook a small North Carolina town, leaving behind a legacy of mystery, sorrow, and unanswered questions. Was it madness? Desperation? Or a dark secret buried deep within the family? As we reflect on this tragic event, we are reminded of the fragility of life and the haunting truth that even the closest families can harbor untold darkness. The Lawson family's story continues to captivate and disturb, a chilling reminder of how a single moment of violence can forever alter the course of lives. Their tragedy not only remains a somber chapter in American history but has also sparked years of speculation and intrigue, questions that may never be fully answered. We hope this story has resonated with you, and we encourage you to take a moment to honor the victims of this tragedy by keeping their memory alive. If you're fascinated by true crime stories and the mysteries they hold, be sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an episode. We'll continue to bring you the most gripping, chilling, and thought-provoking true crime stories. Thank you for joining us in this journey through the darkest corners of human nature. Stay tuned for more.